Good morning, everybody.
Good morning.
All right, the power of perception. It's a new month. Can you believe it's already March? What happened to February? Just gone, just like that. And we have a new theme and a new theme book, which is going to be our new book club book too. And I'm going to read a little bit from this. This is the book that's called The Obstacle is the Way, and it's by Ryan Holiday. And so if anybody wants to take a look at it today, after the talk, you're more than welcome to. So what I want to do today to begin this morning is I want to share from the book's preface because it really beautifully sets the stage of our work this month. So bear with me. It's a little bit long, but it's so perfect. It's so rich. I wanted to get it all. So here we are. And okay, in the year 170 at night in his tent, on the front lines of the war in Germania, Marcus Aurelius, the emperor of the Roman Empire, sat down to write. Or perhaps it was before dawn at the palace in Rome. Or he stole a few seconds to himself during the games, ignoring the carnage on the floor of the Colosseum below. The exact location is not important. What matters is that this man, known today as the last of the 5 good emperors, sat down to write. Not to an audience or for publication, but to himself, for himself. And what he wrote is undoubtedly one of history's most effective formulas for overcoming every negative situation we may encounter in life. A formula for thriving, not just in spite of whatever happens, but because of it. At that moment, he wrote only a paragraph. Only a little of it was original. Almost every thought could, in some form or another, be found in the writings of his mentors and idols. We know Holmes does that a lot, too. But in a scant 85 words, Marcus Aurelius so clearly defined and articulated a timeless idea that he eclipses the great names of those who came before him. Chrysippus, Zeno, Cleanthes, Ariston, Apollonius, Junius, I don't know any of these people, Rusticus, Epictetus, Seneca, and Musonius Rufus. Okay, it is more than enough for us. And this is what he wrote. Our actions may be inspired, but there can be no impeding our intentions or dispositions, because we can accommodate and adapt. The mind adapts and converts to its own purposes the obstacle to our acting. And then he concluded with powerful words destined for maxim. The impediment to action advances action. What stands in the way becomes the way. In Marcus's words is the secret to an art known as turning obstacles upside down, to act with a reverse clause so that there is always a way out or another route to get to where you need to go, so that setbacks or problems are always expected and never permanent, making certain that what impedes us can empower us. Coming from this particular man, these were not idle words. In his own reign of some 19 years, he would experience nearly constant war, a horrific plague, problems, possible infidelity, an attempt at the throne by one of his closest allies, repeated and arduous travel across the empire from Asia Minor to Syria, Egypt, Greece, and Austria, a rapidly depleting treasury, an incompetent and greedy stepbrother as co-emperor, and on and on and on. And from what we know, he truly saw each and every one of these obstacles as an opportunity to practice some virtue: patience, courage, humility, resourcefulness, reason, justice, and creativity. The power he held never seemed to go to his head, neither did the stress or burden. He rarely rose to excess or anger, and never to hatred or bitterness. As Matthew Arnold, the essayist, remarked in 1863, in Marcus we find a man who held the highest and most powerful station in the world, and the universal verdict of the people around him was that he proved himself worthy of it. It turns out that the wisdom of the short passage from Marcus Aurelius can be found in others as well, men and women who followed it like he did. In fact, it is a remarkable constant down through the ages. We are the rightful heirs to this tradition. It is our birthright. Whatever we face, we have a choice. Will we be blocked by obstacles, or will we advance through and over them? We might not be emperors, but the world is still constantly testing us. It asks, are you worthy? Can you get past things that invariably fall in your way? Will you stand up and show us what you're made of? Plenty of people have answered this question in the affirmative, and a rare breed still has shown that they not only have what it takes, but they thrive and rally at each and every such challenge. That the challenge makes them better than if they'd never faced the adversity at all. So now it's your turn to see if you're one of them, if you'll join their company. This book will show the way. So this is quite the interesting book. All right, so it's a pretty bold promise, don't you think? The book this month will show you the way to turn an impediment into a chance for greater empowerment, an obstacle into an opportunity to grow bigger in God, a misfortune into good fortune, and a complication into consciousness expansion. So in the description of this theme, I wrote, bring your biggest challenge to the table this month and let's turn it around. Bring your biggest challenge and let's turn it around. And that is my invitation this month. I invite you to have something in mind as we work together. Have a real life situation that we can shift from being an impediment to being a place of empowerment for you. From an obstacle in your path to an opportunity for you to see who you really are. From what you currently see as a misfortune into good, no, great fortune for you. And from a complication into a real, true expansion of your consciousness. And we absolutely, without a doubt, have the ability to do this. In the words of religious science founder Dr. Ernest Holmes in How to Use the Science of Mind, he wrote, we know that conditions are not things in themselves. We know that conditions are fluidic. They flow in and out, back and forth, with thought. We convert the condition into states of thought, and bringing a higher inward awareness to bear upon them, convert them to new conditions. No matter how impossible any situation may seem, or how difficult the solution of any problem may appear, we hold to the idea that spirit has no problems. There are no impossible situations. And this month, we will know that spirit has no problems. And that there are no impossible situations. And that when we bring a higher inward awareness to bear upon them, we convert them. So are we ready to do this? Are we ready? Okay, then let's go. So according to Ryan Holiday, moving from impediment to empowerment is a discipline of 3 steps. 1, it begins with how we look at our specific problems, our attitude, or our approach. Then it moves to the energy and creativity with which we actively turn them into opportunities. And 3, finally, it concludes the cultivation and maintenance of an inner will that gives us the strength and fortitude to handle whatever life gives us, to know that life does not happen to us, it happens for us. These 3 interdependent and interconnected disciplines could be boiled down to 3 words: perception, action, and will. And we'll explore each this month. But today we're doing perception. So, this thing is right in front of you. This issue, this obstacle, this frustrating, unfortunate, problematic, challenging problem, preventing you from doing what you want to do. What if you looked at it, perceived it as something that isn't actually so bad? What if you realized that something embedded inside it or inherent in it is actually there to benefit you? How would you show up around it? There's a Zen story about a king whose people had grown soft and entitled. Dissatisfied with the state of affairs, he hoped to teach them a lesson. His plan was simple. He would place a large boulder in the middle of the main road, completely blocking entry into the city. He would then hide nearby and observe their reactions. How would they respond? Would they use their creativity to remove it? Would they band together to figure out a plan? Would they stick with it until the boulder moved? Or would they get discouraged, quit, and return home? With growing disappointment, the king watched as subject after subject came to this impediment and turned away. Or at best, tried half-heartedly before giving up. Many openly complained or cursed the king or their misfortune for this obstacle, or bemoaned the inconvenience, but none managed to do anything about it. After several days, a lone peasant came along on his way to town. He did not turn away. Instead, he strained and strained, trying to push the boulder out of the way. Then an idea came to him. He scrambled into the nearby woods to find something that he could use for leverage. Finally, he returned with a large branch he had crafted into a lever and deployed it to dislodge the mass of rock from the road and roll it out of the way. Beneath the rock was a purse of gold coins with a note from the king which said, "The obstacle in the path becomes the path. Never forget, within every obstacle is an opportunity to improve our condition." Whenever we face a challenge in our lives, what seems to matter most really is not what matters most. I want to say that again. What seems to matter most is not what matters most. It is not the obstacle that matters, but rather our perception of it that makes all of the difference. What matters is how we see and understand what occurs around us, and more importantly, what we decide those events mean for us. Holliday writes, "Seen properly, everything that happens, be it an economic crash or a personal tragedy, is a chance to move forward, even if it is on a bearing that we did not anticipate." But the seen properly is the key to that statement. Holliday wrote something that really jumped out at me. He wrote that just because your mind tells you something is awful or terrible or an obstruction to your good or otherwise negative doesn't mean you have to agree. You don't have to agree when that thought pops into your head. We can perceive it another way. We can see it as an opportunity, as a road to our good. No, to our great fortune. We can see it as a road to our great fortune. And likewise, just because other people say that something is hopeless or crazy or broken to pieces doesn't mean that it is. We can see it, we can perceive it another way. We, you and I, get to decide what story we tell ourselves about the situation. And that is the power of perception. We get to choose how we look at the challenge. The fact is, we can't challenge the obstacles themselves. And that is where the beautiful serenity prayer comes in. God, grant me the serenity to accept the things I cannot change, the courage to change the things I can, and the wisdom to know the difference. Or another version, God, grant me the serenity to accept the person I cannot change, the courage to change the person I can, and the wisdom to know that person is me. That's all we have, right? No, we can't change the obstacles themselves. That part of the equation is set. But we can change the way we perceive them, and just the way we perceive them, can make all the difference in the world. Holmes writes in The Science of Mind, "If we believe in suffering, we shall suffer. Life responds to us in the way we approach it. We should choose that which we wish to embody, and by constant attention to it, take on all its characteristics. Let us choose to be identified with power, with love and beauty, with peace and happiness. Let us identify ourselves with abundance and with success." And we read words like this and we shake our heads. Yes, yes, this is good. This is good. I want to identify with all of that. Let me choose to identify with power and love and beauty and peace and happiness and abundance and success. Yes, let me choose to identify with those things. And then I ask you, can you choose that perception toward whatever challenge you brought here this morning? Oh, you mean my challenge? That issue? Well, that's a different story. And then that is where the discipline comes in. Do we have the discipline to choose our perception of the obstacle, or to listen to all the stuff that goes on in our heads and even in our hearts? If we can, that's where all of the difference is made. Let me give you two examples. One comes out of the book, and this is about George Clooney. We all like to hear about George Clooney. He spent his first years in Hollywood getting rejected in auditions. Did you know that? You wouldn't think that, would you? It's really hard to believe. He went into the auditions wanting the producers and the directors to like him. Actually, he needed them to like him because he needed the part. But they didn't, and it hurt. And he blamed the system for not seeing how good he was. Has anyone ever felt like that when they've bumped up against an obstacle? Why am I not getting hired for this position, right? Look at how good I am, right? Is there anyone that feels that way right now about something? You don't have to answer that. All right, after doing it that way unsuccessfully for some time, he decided to perceive his role differently. He thought about the whole process of making a movie or a television show and realized that casting is actually an obstacle for producers too, not just for actors such as himself. They needed to find the right person for the role just as much as he wanted that role. And they were always hoping that the next person who walks into the room will be that person. He realized that auditions were a chance to solve their problems, not his. Now that's looking at the obstacle in quite a different way, isn't it? So he decided to be their solution. He wasn't going to be someone groveling for a shot to play the role. Rather, he would walk in as someone with something special to offer. He was the answer to their prayers, not the other way around. And that was what he began projecting in his auditions, not exclusively his acting skills, but that he was the man for the job. That he understood what the casting directors and producers were looking for a specific role, and that he would deliver it in each and every situation in pre-production, on camera, and during promotion. That difference made all the difference. His obstacle became his way. And the second example I want to share this morning is one that's just a little more personal, and it has to do with our center. When I decided to become a minister, I had a choice. I could have applied to be a staff minister, a chaplain, or a pastor. And at the time, I didn't think I would ever be starting my own center or my own church. But, something in me said, you need to have some options. So I went for pastor, and I was approved to be a pastor. My business plan actually suggested that I have a satellite location for the Sacramento church, that we just start up a satellite, organization. In my mind, I was thinking, wow, this is beautiful. We have a small group here. All of the paperwork and details could be handled up there. We wouldn't have to mess with any of that in Sacramento. Well, the home office said, no, we don't do satellite churches. You need to start your own if you're going to do that. And I said, well, after I passed my orals to be a pastor, I thought, no, I'll keep driving up there. I'll just keep driving up and I'll serve as a staff minister. That was okay. I knew that I wanted a work in the Modesto area. So I asked the Sacramento church if I could teach accredited classes in my home. And they said yes. There was nothing that said I couldn't teach the classes down here. I just wasn't going to offer any Sunday services at the time. So I did that, and I didn't have to start a new work. I could just do what I loved, which was teaching classes. And it was perfect because without realizing it, I was building the core group that would become our center here in Modesto. So when the church up there closed their doors, it was ready for this one to open right up. And that's what happened. I like to think that Spirit had a bigger idea for me than I had for myself. And I wasn't going to get stuck in, obstacles. I just was going to figure out how I could be the best at what I knew how to do and be of service. So the question for us this morning around your current issue or challenge or obstacle is this: what can you change and what can you not change? What can you change and what can't you change? You can change your perception, a combination of thoughts, judgments, emotions, approach, creativity, attitude, desires, decisions, determinations. That is your playing field, so to speak. Everything is fair game. But what can't you change? Well, everything else. The economy, circumstances, other people's judgments or decisions, trends, disasters, etc. And there's one more important factor here, and it is also something you cannot change, but it's something that's really good. It's really a good thing. You can't change the fact that there is an infinite power of God's good standing at the ready to be expressed through your life. You cannot change that if you will just open up to it. And in the divine intelligence that is God, way more vast and more expansive than we could ever begin to comprehend, this obstacle is exactly what is needed for our next stage of consciousness growth, for our evolution, for our expansion. That's the spiritual truth, and that truth does not change. So how do we shift our perception to a place where this spiritual truth can be alive in and through us? Let's do it right now. Right now, bring your issue to mind and look at it square in the face and say, there is an energy in this universe.
There is an energy in this universe.
Way bigger than you.
Way bigger than you.
The solution is here for me.
The solution is here for me.
Because I am at the center.
Because I am at the center
of the mind of God.
of the mind of God.
Right where I am,
Right where I am,
the wisdom of the universe is.
the wisdom of the universe is.
Answers to every question are accessible.
Answers to every question are accessible.
Because right where I am, God is.
Because right where I am, God is.
I know this obstacle is the way to my good.
I know this obstacle is the way to my good.
No, to my great fortune.
No, to my great fortune.
As we have spoken, so it is. And so it is.